one channel here in 1 second. Just wanted to say thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so excited to have y'all here. We've got Mallory Littleton with us here, who is the senior narrative designer over at Deck 9 Games. So let us switch over. Here we go. Mallory, hello!
Hey, Katie, how's it going?
Good, how are you? It is so nice to have you on.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool to be here. You know, longtime fan, first time caller.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we got to do our press interviews together, which was so cool. And
so good.
We both realized that that was like the first time we've ever done press interviews. And I was like so happy to be able to do it with you because you had no idea either. Also, you kicked butt. You kicked butt.
I thought we were like a good team. I think.
Me too. Yeah.
We complimented each other well and had lots of complimentary talking points.
Yeah. A lot of the time I felt like they were like directed at like dev questions. So I would just like sit there and just kind of like stare at your like little screen face and be like, I hope Mallory answers this because I have no idea. And you would like wait a second and then you would jump in. And I was like, thank goodness, because I don't know what I would have said.
Oh, I felt like a number of times I was talking way too much and I was like, oh geez, I need to shut up. And
they were all
like,
a lot of them were asking like dev questions, like dev things that like I wouldn't know about, like, you know, like I don't know. So I was like, yeah, no, it just it worked for it. But yes, again, thank you so much, everybody. This is Mallory Littleton from Deck 9 Games, senior narrative designer over at Deck 9, worked on Life is Strange True Colors as senior narrative designer, and then you're an assistant writer for Life is Strange Before the Storm, correct? Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's right.
Cool. Gotta make sure I get all of those credits right. I gotta make sure, because they change. Your guys is like
they do.
Corwin was like assistant director, and then he was like something else, and then he ended up being mocap producer. So it's just like I want to make sure that I have your guys' stuff correct. So first of all, congratulations for all of the awesome nominations from not only the Golden Joystick Awards, but also the Game Awards that just were announced yesterday. That is super exciting. One of them being Best Narrative, which you are senior narrative designer, so I don't know. Hello? How are you feeling?
Really good. I mean, gosh, the last couple of months have been such a whirlwind. I'm sure you can relate. It feels like True Colors came out 70 years ago, and it's been like, what, 3 months? So yeah, it's just been a whirlwind of like watching folks stream it and seeing folks enjoy that. And then, yeah, now some nominations are coming in, and they're like big, cool nominations. And you know, you can never really expect something like that. You always just kind of have to hope. And when a nomination comes through, it's always just, it's just so exciting. It's like a nice little another little blip of validation. That thing you spent several years of your life on was actually kind of good, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously you have the validation and the praise of the fans who have played this game. I mean, you know, it's all over everywhere. People are so excited and it's life-changing. There's just so much to amount to it. But yes, getting an actual nomination must feel incredible, and I'm so happy. I freaked out yesterday. I saw the twit on Twitter and the tweet on Twitter. I can't speak. And immediately went to my Discord, and they were like, "We already know, Katy. We voted." I'm so excited. Yeah, they're like, "You're late to the game," and I was like, "I didn't know. I had no idea." I don't know when these game things happen. I have no clue. You know, the nominations and the awards, they just pop up.
I should probably keep better track of it than I do. But it's also kind of fun to just, see a tweet all of a sudden and get some surprising news rather than be like looking for something. And and Best Narrative, Games for Impact, and then ERIKA Mori with the Best Performance is Alex Chen, which is just amazing. What a fun spread of nominations there.
Yeah.
And I love that the Game Awards has that impact category. I think like we've seen a lot of stuff kind of come through there, and it tends to be True Colors kind of doesn't follow this pattern, but I love that category tends to highlight some smaller games with really important messages, because I think those types of games are often left out of the big awards stage. So I love that they have that category, and it's such a privilege to be included in it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, December 9th, I think, is when all that's happening, when it's all going down. So yes, fingers crossed, everything, we'll get one of those, right? One of those awards. We'll see. And if not, just being nominated, like being nominated is such a huge honor. And I'm just so happy. And I'm just so happy to even just be a little part of the game that's just being out there and a lot of people are enjoying. So yeah, there you go with that. But let's talk about you, since you are here to inform us about everything Mallory, what you do, and working at Deck 9 Games, Life is Strange, all that stuff. So to jump into it, just a little bit about you, your job at Deck 9 and how you came into working at Deck 9.
Yeah, I like to sort of joke that I tripped and fell into video games. I was a student at the same college that Corwin went to, actually. That's how we know each other.
Really? Dude, we just literally heard the same thing. Corwin literally said I tripped and fell as well. So go to the school that Mallory and Corwin went to, and then you also will trip and fall. Okay.
I remember my screenwriting teacher, Will. He was working on this new kind of secret class that he was really excited about. And he sort of pulled me aside after class one day and told me a little bit about it. And he described this mysterious game studio called Idle Minds. And they have this new game writing tool that they wanted tested, and they wanted to get some students working in it and get some feedback about it. And so Will sort of set this whole thing up where we got to use Deck 9's writing tool in the class at school. And Corin and I were both in that class, and I just really fell in love with Playwright, our scripting tool. I'm such a nerd, and you can do so many cool things with it, kind of all in the same place, which I really appreciate about it. So I just threw myself whole hog into learning Playwright. And then lo and behold, a few months later, Deck 9 needed somebody to ensure that the scripts that were going to mocap were the most up to date. And that wasn't the whole gig. There was some other little components of it, but that was really kind of the main thing that I was originally hired for as a temporary position, little student intern kind of setup. And I got that gig because I knew the tool really well. And then sort of one thing led to another, and I don't know, maybe I'm kind of good at writing, and I just stuck around. They eventually automated my original job out of existence. There isn't a person doing that gig anymore. And I'm still here, which is sweet. But it really was just this kind of, I hadn't really thought a whole lot about writing video games when I was in school, because it was film school. I was thinking about TV and movies, and then Will was like, have you ever thought about writing video games? And I was like, no, honestly, I haven't. And then, I spent a couple months in his class with the tool and just fell in love with it. And so lucky to have been in the right place at the right time in the way that I was, to have ended up here. So that's how I got here. That's how we ended up where we are currently.
Yeah. And you went from that temp job to assistant writer to now senior narrative designer, which
2 steps in between.
So wait, what were did you have any other titles in between those?
So I was for most of Siren, I think probably, or True Colors, I think I was probably staff writer for most of that project.
Okay.
And then towards the end, or maybe after we finished on True Colors, I was moved into a narrative design position. But we can talk a little bit about what the differences are and why the distinction is there, and whether or not I was doing narrative design as a writer. It's all kind of jumbled. And then it's kind of wormed
up. So since we're kind of on the topic of writer versus narrative designer, what are the differences? Because I think a lot of people are always like, what is that? What does that mean? I'm confused. So
and it is confusing. And to make it even worse, I think every studio you go to might have slightly different terminology when they talk about these things. For us, I can talk about it at Deck 9. And my sort of usual, what is narrative design spiel is if you look at a movie, right? There's the script, the words that are coming out of the actors' mouths. but there's so much more to it than that, right? Let's say that the script is the story or something, and we're drawing a Venn diagram. You're also, seeing the shots that were chosen and hearing the music that was selected and looking at the props and the art department, the wardrobe, and all of this stuff. And the narrative, like the real experience that the audience takes away is really a combination of those things, as opposed to just, oh, the story is just the words that are being said. No, that's not true, right? The whole experience is kind of one unified thing. And so when you look at video games as like compared to film, especially a game like Life is Strange, we very much have, the writing and the dialogue, and then also all of those cinematic components. But because it's a game, you're going to introduce player interaction as this third element. And so for us at Deck 9, and my role as the narrative designer, is trying to make sure that the story and the words that the narrative team is coming up with, and the gameplay, the way that the player, like, what tasks are we asking you to perform? What choices are we asking you to make? How do those choices actually impact the story? All of that plays a huge part in the way the player experiences the game. And so the sort of role that I'm taking on now and for our next project is are we asking the player to do the right tasks to feel like they're participating in the story when we give choices? Are those choices engaging? Are we asking you to think about the right things? Are we preparing you to make an informed decision one way or the other? And to be honest, all of this stuff, like it very much touches on writing, and it very much touches on gameplay. And I don't want to sit here and seem like, if you liked it, it's because of me. Like, I'm not trying to take all the credit, but there's like a lot of kind of complicated interactions between these things, and I'm just kind of there to help facilitate that communication from one team to another, and really get those things to like interlock and feel really nice together, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. And I think that hopefully clears up some for the chat as well, because I got a lot of different questions about like what was the difference. So yeah, it's more than just the writing, but that is still a part of it. It's just this overarching idea of trying to combine everything together and make sure that it all flows nicely. And I think you've done a wonderful job. You and the narration team, I think, have done a wonderful job. Also, the Game Awards think so too. I'm just gonna keep just throwing it out there, just because I'm just so excited for you guys. And so that actually kind of touches on that first question we had, which was literally what's the difference between. So Alex, thank you for that question. Hopefully that answered it for you.
It's a really good one. It's a really common one. And like I said, it kind of changes from studio to studio. There might be places that don't have writers per se. They only have narrative designers. Or it's probably one of the more flexible titles that I've come across in the industry, narrative design.
I mean, it sounds nice. What does that mean? Yeah, what does it mean? I think it sounds nice though. Awesome.
Sounds very complicated. I like it when relatives are like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" I'm like, "Narrative design," and their eyes glaze over.
They're like, what does this mean? Yeah, if you're like, "Oh, I'm just a staff writer," they'll be like, "Okay, like staff writers,
She writes words.
Yeah, she writes words. Staff writers, they have those at newspapers. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, narrative designer. Good. I love that. All right, cool. So we got a lot of questions from some folks in the chat who are super into writing themselves. They write some fan fiction, so they're really, really excited to hear your thought on a lot of things. So Gorellas asks, what is the most difficult part of designing a narrative with branching decisions?
Wow, picking one. That's the real task. I think, unfortunately, nobody, every game is going to cost some money to make. And every time we have one of these big decisions, we want to make sure that it's feeling impactful to the narrative, that you're not just putting in inputs and they're flying out into space and no one's ever going to see them or see what they were or care. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're not, if you take option A, you get a really amazing, really long game because you picked option A, but if you pick option B, the game is short and doesn't the characters don't grow or anything like that. And so we need to make sure that every choice sort of makes sense within the context of the story, and that the branches from those choices feel significant, and also are stuff that we can make without trying to kill the team.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a challenge. And then on top of that, yeah, like I was kind of talking about earlier, making sure that these are choices that the player is sort of set up to understand what's happening, and set up to say, oh, if I choose choice A, I'm doing it for this reason because I have this goal, or I want this kind of outcome, and not just kind of asking you a question randomly and and then you don't really know how you're meant to engage with it,
Mm-hmm.
or what criteria you're supposed to be using to approach the choice or pick an option. There's a lot of balancing involved.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because I feel like, yeah, you have, and I think I'm not, maybe maybe I'm a little biased, I don't know, but I like to think that I'm not biased, because I tried to play it, taken aback for me being, an actor in it. I tried to play it as just a player. But I truly do think that, the two branches you did between Steph and Ryan, I think you guys did amazingly. I think that both those characters share a really significant, part of Alex's life, whichever way you decide to go. And, I can imagine that, it being difficult because you have this returning character who fans are going to automatically, relate to more because they know of this character instead of this character. But again, I think you guys did an amazing job on what I've heard, from my community, of showcasing, Ryan and Alex, or Steph and Alex. I think both paths you've chosen, highlight what you just stated. So yeah.
Yeah, we tried to really kind of set up, like we want to make sure that it's not like, here's the healthy relationship option and then the toxic one. We really wanted to make sure that no matter who you picked, like both Steph and Ryan could be people who would be good for Alex and could help her. But at the same time, if Steph and Ryan are literally the same character, you're kind of left in that same sort of, how am I supposed to approach this? What should I be considering kind of void? And so we really wanted to set up Steph and Ryan to be opposed in certain ways, and then and then those choices can kind of coalesce around what you think your Alex really needs or wants. That was really fun, setting up and trying to balance Steph and Ryan. I know that I'm biased, so so I really had to put work into the Ryan.
Trying to I like how you stated your Alex too. I think that's so important because not everybody is going to experience Alex the same way. And I think that's what's really important about these narrative driven games where it's a choose your own adventure, is that each time it's played, it's a different Alex. And each, choice you make is valid towards your Alex. I think that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you nailed it every time you come back to it. I think these are types of games that you kind of get out what you put in. And I think that's, in choice-based narrative, a real privilege to get to try to craft things like that. I don't know. As you can tell, I'm a huge nerd who's super into this stuff, and like I've made it my whole life. But I just think it's so interesting. I could ramble for hours.
Well, that's why you're here. You're here to ramble, and we've got so many questions. And feel free, like just keep rambling, go on these tangents because I love to hear about it, and I know everyone in chat's loving to hear about it. So Tati, you probably saw her name a lot. Tati asked a lot of questions, but a lot of great questions.
Rock on.
Yes, we love Tati for all the questions. So Tati asks, how was the fan reaction to the game been like for you? And then how did it feel watching a game you worked on come to life? You kind of touched a little bit on that, but how has the fan reaction been like?
I mean, it's really just been incredible. I think I said this a couple of times in our press, but it really is true. We kind of go into a dark cave and we start making this thing, and it's very secretive. You like hiss over your shoulder every time whenever someone enters the room, and we're in this cave and we're all kind of together in there, and we're all hoping that what we're making is going to be meaningful to people. And we're working in this franchise that we are all huge fans of, and that has this enormous, positive, supportive community. And there's just, yeah, like I think devs tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves to get it right. And so when it finally, you free it and it goes out into the world, and getting to see that, people thought that dumb joke that I thought was funny. Some people also thought that was funny, and that feels good. Sometimes you write a joke and you're watching a streamer and the joke comes and nothing.
Oh.
Stony face. And I'm not gonna lie, those moments really crack me up too.
Wait, what joke are you thinking about that, you're like, oh, I'm so glad they got that joke. I'm glad they thought that was funny as well.
I mean, I really thought, boy, I
Uh-oh.
really thought the "ye" and "I cannot stress this enough" ha line was really funny, but that could so easily have been a dud. Like I could so easily have seen
Well, it's
that
not a
just
dud here.
feeling.
Here in my community, they love that as well. They love that line as well. Everyone's freaking out. Like, please, it's amazing. I love that line. That's so funny. I love that one. They're screaming in the chat right now. I love that joke.
I thought it was really funny, and so that was one that didn't fall flat in most cases that I saw, which made me very grateful. I guess I can't think of anything like anything from True Colors specifically that didn't quite land, but that's probably just because I'm like feeling really positive right now.
Yeah,
so
no, you should feel positive.
Like,
what about
closet somewhere?
What about the ones where like it did land and you were happy that it landed? Like those jokes, if you can think of any.
I guess, I mean, like the other one is the angry dude, the guy on the phone with AAA.
Bald guy. He has a name, Mallory.
Bald guy, that's
right.
right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, bald guy.
He changed names a lot. He was, I think when we first christened that character, he was called Disgruntled Man.
Disgruntled Man? I think that might have been the one that I saw in like one of the first like, gameplays of it. I think that was the Disgruntled Man. I saw Disgruntled Man. And then you're like, ah, he's bald. Let's just name him Bald Guy. Yeah.
Well, we realized that we had the opportunity to sort of make them recurring characters.
Yeah, which is just amazing.
And then, yeah, so we wanted the names attached to them to not be derivative of the emotional state they were in the first time we saw them, in case we see, I guess Bald Man, is pretty angry every time we see him.
Yeah, he never gets
help. He might have been okay,
yeah,
but
he never gets help.
Yeah, we had like a whole smattering of those like kind of side characters that changed names so that we hoped the player would be able to track, oh, this is the same character as last time, even though he was sad guy the last time I saw him, and now he's confused guy or something. Like that wasn't gonna work, so we went back through and gave them all better names.
I love that. And I absolutely love, I've praised that whole arc for the NPC characters before, but just it's amazing. It's so cool to be able to have that experience with characters that you don't interact with on a secondary level or a main level. You just see them passing by, but because Alex has this really cool feature or this really cool power where she can listen to people, that's so cool that we can now learn these stories about these NPCs and see them all the way through all 5 chapters.
Yeah, and it was really important to us for True Colors to, because we've got this whole community and building a home, but that kind of wasn't going to make any sense if you really only talk to like 6 people around the town. And so we wanted to make it really feel like Haven was a place that was filled with actual people, and we wanted to really highlight how Gabe's death impacts that community. And again, like, with the 6 people that who knew him, of course that's going to be impactful. But we wanted to show that even people in this town as a whole, who maybe didn't know him as well as our primary cast, were still impacted and their lives were changed. And give Alex and the player that opportunity to follow those threads and sometimes improve the community. So yeah, we we put a lot of thought into that, and it was nice to see people liking it.
Yeah. And have you played the game all the way through yet, or have you just kind of? I mean, it's different as when you're in the game world because you literally played all the time, right? But I don't know.
I have not my own hands on the controller. Played through all of True Colors. I can say there are certain scenes that I've played probably long enough to make up a whole True Colors. Like I've just played like the Eleanor scene
Oh, yeah.
so many times, trying to get that dialed in and feeling right.
Dang. And that's one of the scene with the scenes with Eleanor and Ducky. I think it's just like I have like a soft heart for old people.
Ducky.
So I don't know. I think
Ducky.
that's just me, but
Ducky is so verbose.
Yeah. I mean, just such beautiful scenes. Yeah, that when you talk about watching streamers play these games, like watching a streamer not have any idea what their choice with Eleanor is going to be after they make it, because a lot of people I've seen do end up telling her. Also, spoilers all over the place. We're talking spoilers here, guys.
Left and right.
Just in case. But I've seen so many streamers, you know, just go into just utter just shock, and they're just terrified because they just, you know, crush this woman, and it's like, oh, you know. And I mean, that's my reaction too. Like, I knew what was going to happen because I had played a little bit of it in the beginning, but I didn't know the impact it was going to have on me. So you guys really did get it dialed in really well. Yeah.
Thank you. Lots of meetings about that one.
Yeah, in the writing room. Tati has another question. So one thing I really loved about this game was that every decision had a direct impact on the story, even if you didn't realize it did at first. What was the process for coming up with these decisions and making sure they held weight? Did you use flow charts? Like, how did you physically do all this?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to start sort of with a high level kind of idea. Here's where we're starting. Here are some things that we're going to do along the way. Here's where we want to end. And here's roughly the characters that we want to include in this story, and roughly how we want to include them. And I think sometimes certain characters just really, like, they almost write their own choices in who they are or how they act. And when we have those really clear ideas really early on, sometimes those can get into the story break early on. But with kind of with everything, it's all very active and effortful. We know that we want to make sure that there's enough choices in each episode that you're not just kind of, you're not just watching a movie and then occasionally being asked to go find some item for a character. We want to make sure that you're engaged and that we're giving choices often enough that it does feel like your story, like your Alex, like your version of what happens in Haven. So we sometimes start with a target of, oh, we want X many choices in this chapter or Y many in that chapter. And then as the story kind of takes shape over months and months of work, and we get the sort of scenes nailed down and who's going to be in this scene and what's going on in it, what's the goal that we're entering the scene with? What's the goal that we're leaving this scene with? How does the scene change it? And sometimes once we get into the more, like, kind of more granular than that, some of those choices will start to leap out at us. And then sometimes it's really fun, actually, as we start moving into the sort of end game, the last few chapters, we can really sort of see all of these rivers of choices. You know, in the case of True Colors, it's that council meeting scene where all of the waters are sort of rushing back together, and it's going to cause this big kind of chaotic collision of all of the decisions that you've made throughout the game. Let's see. What was the question?
I mean, it was just basically what do you use, how the structure of it, but you've explained it pretty well. Just the extract, like how to physicalize, you know, creating these branches, and like how, you know, do you use flowcharts? Do you write it on, you know, whiteboards, that kind of
flowcharts? Yeah,
the flowcharts. Well, you kind of explained it a little bit, like having the target and then kind of building up to that target and giving yourself this skeleton structure. Yeah.
And then I guess another piece, and it's really weird. I do sort of feel a little bit like I'm repeating myself.
No, you're good. Yeah, no, you're good.
You know, we like, in particular, like asking the player to make choices that relate directly to the sort of theme or the message. And so, like, for example, with that Eleanor choice, she's she's part of this community and something has impacted it. But she also is somewhat separate from it. And in making this choice about telling her or not, you're really kind of solidifying, or not solidifying, but making your mark on what Alex's role within that community is. And so, yeah, we really try to come up with choices that can ask the player to really engage with the themes that we're trying to present, rather than try to like hit you over the head with them in a more static scene. We try to ask those questions to the player dynamically and let the player come up with.
Well, another great question, which kind of goes into a little bit about this with what we've been talking about. So Grief asks, which character went through the most growth? Now, obviously, Alex as the main character went through the most growth, but I mean, being on the narration side of things, like you got to see these characters grow from literally nothing to being fully developed. So I guess, maybe aside from Alex, what other character do you think had the most growth from literally the idea that was formed in your guys' heads to the character that we see now on the game?
That's a good question. I think I would probably have to pick Riley.
I was wondering if you're going to say Riley.
Yeah. Riley was initially kind of meant to be like a shallow mean girl type, like almost in the vein of Victoria Chase.
Interesting.
And I'm trying to remember. It was a very long time ago. I believe that initially Riley wasn't meant to be related to Eleanor.
Oh.
And over the course of, however many decisions were made, it became clear that was a smart thing to do, kind of combine those two characters in terms of how we're thinking about them and how they relate to Haven and to Alex. And once we made that move, that sort of shallow kind of mean girl thing didn't feel right for that scenario anymore. And so we sort of reconceived of her, and then a little bit later we reconceived of her again as we jokingly called it Robot College in the writer's room. She's going to Robot College. We were like, oh wait, wow, what if Riley's actually really smart at something that you wouldn't expect? She's really into computers and robotics, and it's cool to sort of see how I had an idea. I'm going to save it for a later question, but it's been cool to see her character become, I think Riley's really interesting. I really like Riley as a character, and so seeing her go from a type of character that we've maybe seen a few times before into something that's more unique and more specific. And of course, I'm a nerd, so I love other people who are nerds. I love that she's a nerd. It's great.
Yeah, a lot of people really, really love Riley. There's like this little Riley fan club that I've seen amongst my channel in the Discords and over on Twitter. So, I mean, great character. That's awesome. I love that.
And she's witty. She's sassy. Gabe's helping her with her college applications. She's going places, man. It was really fun to watch her evolve.
So on the topic of characters, Morgan asks, who is your favorite character in True Colors and why?
Who is my favorite character in True Colors and why? That's a good one. Oh, it's gonna sound like I'm trying to like kiss your ass. It's Steph. I mean,
I already knew that. I knew that you were gonna. I knew when I was picking those. I think she's just gonna say Steph because I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I wish I had a contrarian answer or something that would make people go, ooh, maybe I haven't been thinking deeply enough about so and so. But I think it's probably got to be Steph. It's just so fun to write Steph's lines.
Yeah.
Steph really brings a lot of energy to every scene she's in. I'm sure you're familiar.
Slightly, a little bit, yeah.
I really like Charlotte would be a close second, I think.
Yeah.
Charlotte has, I think, a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And depth in a direction that this franchise hasn't really had the opportunity to explore a whole lot of in that sort of motherhood role, because it's been a series that was focused on younger people. Max is, I think, 18 in the first game, and so Joyce is present, and we talk to her and we care about her a lot, but I don't think we get to dive into what's going on with Joyce in the same way we get to really get into Charlotte's head.
Interesting, yeah.
So yeah, I really like Charlotte a lot
Yeah.
too. Close second.
Cool. You're like, okay, I need to say something else because I can't just sit here and just say Steph.
No,
Wait.
it's true.
Yeah. Wait, I'm cuz I feel so bad because I feel like I should just remember whatever like what you guys wrote cuz I don't know, I was there. But
There's a lot of stuff.
there was a lot of cuz I was always confused of like which writers on which scene and stuff. So
Us too.
could you could you just remind, I guess, me and also just everyone that's watching, what were the Steph scenes, or at least one that you wrote? Just so we can give a little perspective to folks in the chat.
I think I wrote that the record store scene where we first bump into Steph.
Some chick, you wrote that line?
Sadly, the some chick line is not mine. I wish it was.
Who wrote that one?
Gosh, I can't remember specifically. I think that was either John or Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was somebody above me who came in and punched up my line and made it better, and I was mad about it. Mad I didn't write that one.
Oh man. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I remember just being, because the writers would come in and hang out in the mocap room when we were doing our scenes, and there would be a different writer every time, and I'm just like, this is crazy. There's just so many hands. There's so many people working to make this, come to the end product of it all.
Yes, so many folks at Deck Nine just poured their souls into this game, and it's really such a privilege to get to work with such a talented and dedicated team. So many good folks doing good stuff at Deck Nine. Shout out to all of Deck Nine.
Yes. Okay, cool. So more on the character and the growth of these characters. So we had ERIKA come on Plus One several weeks back, and ERIKA said in an interview that a lot of Alex's character was influenced from her acting, and that Alex was a lot more brash in the earlier stages of the game. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and how did Alex change over time?
Yeah, I watched quite a bit of ERIKA's interview, but sadly not all of it. I don't know if I heard that part, so apologies to anyone for competitive information.
Good.
But yeah, Alex really is a product of her past, right? And we know that past has not been great for her. There's been a lot of really hard stuff that she's had to contend with in her life, and in early versions, she was a bit more cynical, and unsure about Haven, and was sort of in this kind of, none of my fresh starts have worked so far, so I'm not going to let myself believe in this too much because I don't want to get hurt. And I think in a lot of ways, like, she had a lot of similarities to Chloe in Before the Storm and the first Life is Strange. And yeah, it's sometimes these are kinds of things that are sort of difficult to describe, but it really wasn't working very well for a whole slew of reasons. And I think ERIKA played such a big role in really helping us pin down why it wasn't working. And yeah, between her insight that she brought to the character and her performance and our own sort of internal, this doesn't quite feel like the game that we're trying to make. We sort of circled the drain and eventually found this version of Alex who starts the game much more hopeful. And I think that's a much more compelling version of the character for us, because of course no one could have blamed Alex for not wanting to be too invested in Haven given what she's been through. But that, I think, given what she's been through, is what makes that hope that much more compelling, that she could still have, after having been through all of that stuff with, her mom dying and her dad walking out, and then just misery after misery in the system, for her to leave that and come to Haven and really have hope that it's going to be good, really believe that it's going to be good, that she can make it good, even though she's afraid that things still might go wrong. That was really compelling to us, and that's something that ERIKA played a huge role in helping us pin down.
Awesome. I love that so much. I played the second playthrough and did all my different choices, and one of the different choices was to leave Mac, was to walk away from Mac and not help him through his like panic attack. And I was like, okay, she's just gonna walk away and be like, peace. And nope, her character turns around and just screams at Mac. And I was like, where did this character come from? And ERIKA had said, that was kind of a little bit more of how Alex was, the original Alex. So it's like, that's interesting to think about that scene and be like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I love hopeful Alex. I love her, and I think it is very compelling, and it gives us something to hold on to for her. And I think a lot of us can find ourselves in her because we want that hope as just people every day, right?
Yeah, of course. I think that I don't want to say like Alex is an aspirational character, because I don't know, that's sort of chintzy. I think maybe by the end of the story, Alex is able to really kind of look inside and grow from these things that she'd been sort of hiding from, and I think that is aspirational. But I know for me personally, sometimes having that hope is really difficult when I am struggling to see the good outcome of something, or I've been burned so many times by XYZ or whatever. So for me, to see a character go through such hard stuff and still be hopeful is, I don't know. I personally found that heartening.
Same.
So I'm glad that came through for folks that aren't me.
So talking about, these different scenes and all these different avenues, were there any decisions or storylines that you had to cut that you wish you could have kept in, if you're able to talk about that?
Yeah, I think I can talk about some of it. It's, and I know I keep saying this, but this game was in the works for years, and the story is very much a living thing up until we ship the game. And so there's just hundreds, if not thousands, of older versions containing things that we just didn't end up doing for one reason or another. I think my favorite beat that we chopped, unfortunately, I guess it was a sort of kind of a whole side plot that didn't end up making it. We had Pike, Officer Jason Fish, and Diane at one point were actually dating, like fully dating, as opposed to Pike just kind of maybe having a crush. And there was a beat where everyone was in the record store, and this will be familiar. We can see how this scene sort of evolved. And Steph invites Diane into the booth to do a radio interview about something about the mine, so that Alex and Ryan can swipe the flash drive from her bag.
Oh.
But oh no, she's brought her boyfriend, Officer Fish, with her. And so our scheme to swipe her flash drive has a hiccup in it. And I think we probably had a slightly different version of the power than what we ended up going with at this time too, but there was some gameplay where you would use Alex's power to either convince Pike that he wants to marry Diane, and he like runs out to buy a ring like right then. It was really silly. And in the other way, if you nudge him the other way, he like throws open the door to Steph's radio booth and breaks up with her live on the radio.
Oh my god. Holy moly, that's brutal. What? That's crazy.
That was a funny scene that unfortunately didn't end up in the game, but that makes me chuckle every time I think about it.
And that's just like one of the hundreds and thousands of different things you guys have written, and that's crazy just to think of.
Oh my gosh, so many things. For some reason, Pike seems to be a key element in the two that I remember. The other one was, again, because Pike and Diane were like dating in this very old version, where if you took Pike's fear, he ends up like how Alex ended up down in the mine was extremely different then too. But when Alex is in the mine, Pike is sort of this like weird emotionless serial killer, like chasing you around the mine, and it was this really
what?
Because you took his fear, you removed his inhibitions.
So he's like
But
hunting you down because he's thinking that like Alex took apart and all this. So he's hunting. Oh my God.
he's like trying. He was like, I think he was trying to protect Diane.
Yeah.
But these were very, very early days.
Wow.
And as you can see, a lot of the context and that
Yeah.
specific stuff that I talked about changed dramatically towards the end. I
Dang.
think for the better.
Yeah.
Though I would have loved to see Diane's face if Pike had broken live on the air.
I'd
That would've
rather
been really
see
good.
that than having Pike chase me in a mine. Like, oh my gosh, that's giving me
Well,
fear.
you're not supposed to enjoy that.
No, I'm just thinking about Alex now, like hobbling around. She would not get away from him. Like, oh my God, everybody in the chat's just like, help me. No, Life is Strange horror game. Somebody says I kind of want that.
See,
Life is terrifying.
I think in that version, Alex had found an entrance on her own, and so she wasn't injured. If that makes anyone in the chat feel better.
There you go. So she had complete ability to move around. Nice. I love this insight. This is so fun. I love this.
Oh, so many versions of this game exist.
That's so crazy. Another question from Tati. How was working on True Colors compared to Before the Storm? Did you find it easier to create choices and a storyline with fresh characters and a story, or opposed to a prequel? So creating your own or having to play along and create, existing characters, build off of them.
Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons, right? With Before the Storm, we had a pretty clear picture of where Chloe needed to be by the end of the game, because we had it was a prequel, and so we sort of knew where Chloe was at when Max reconnects with that first game. And that's a little bit limiting, but it's also really helpful to understand the emotional arc that your character needs to complete. And of course, there's, I think, 2 years in between the end of Before the Storm and the beginning of Life is Strange. So there's still a little bit of time for more things to develop with this character. But it was also great because we had good reference for how Chloe talks and how she thinks about things and how would she say this if that's what she was trying to say. And that's all really helpful. Of course, Chloe in Before the Storm is not exactly the same Chloe that we meet in Life is Strange. And so we couldn't just, steal Don't Nod's work and run with it. But we did have a nice starting point to be like, okay, well, if this is what this character is like at, I think, 19 in the first game, after these things have happened, can we sort of reverse engineer what she would have been like at 16? Mm-hmm. And so it is nice to have that content and that framework. The whole prequel thing was a little bit limiting in terms of choice. We couldn't get too off the rails with characters that we knew needed to be alive and well and mm-hmm. being snarky in Life is Strange. So that was a little bit tricky, making sure that we had those choices that still felt impactful, but not so impactful that the game we were supposed to be a prequel to stops making sense. Mm-hmm. And then I guess if you sort of take that and turn it on its head, that's what True Colors was like. Mm-hmm. Because, I just talked about how it took us a while to find the right Alex to lead this game and what is her voice and how does she think about these things. There's a lot more work that goes into that with a brand new blank slate character. And then, of course, on the other hand, these are our characters in our town and we can do whatever we want to it. Mm-hmm. So there's a bit more freedom on the choice end of things. Yeah. So yeah, I guess freedom is both awesome and terrifying. And so having a bunch of it is awesome and terrifying, and having guidelines is also awesome and also terrifying, but in totally different ways.
Well, with True Colors, Pau asked, what is something that you're most proud of with True Colors? I know that's a very big question.
Oh my gosh.
There's lots of things, right?
So I mean, there's things that I'm personally, as a writer, like this scene that I wrote or this beat that I wrote that I'm personally proud of.
Let's go with that. What is that? I'm curious, from your personal perspective.
I think I would probably personally have to point to the Eleanor Power moment. I thought it turned out nicely, and the sort of retrace your steps gameplay was just like really kind of a sweet thing to be doing, and that the choice at the end was appropriately agonizing for players.
Yeah.
I think I've seen, because I lurk in the Reddit sometimes. I've seen folks in the Reddit talking about some like real world realizations or thoughts or conversations that have been spurred for them and their family members because of that scene. And just for me, that's like completely show stopping to hear that something that you've worked on had that kind of impact on somebody's real actual life, their real relationships. So I guess if I had to pick one of my like personal things, I would pick that one. I think more broadly though, this sort of, I don't know, this is a little weird sounding, but like the sort of lesson or theme of the game overall was something that I personally returned to a lot, and drew a lot of inspiration from, this idea that everyone has their own value outside of what they can offer, or what services they can perform, what role they can fill. And so to see Alex kind of come to this new place and be really hopeful, and then sort of step into this role of fixer, which we realize, close to the end of the game is a role that she's been trying to do for a long time, a role that was almost prescribed to her. And I don't know, maybe this was just my personal experience, but I think I saw a lot of folks at a similar stage in their lives, in the real world growing up, trying to find their value in what they can do for other people. And I've seen that go really quickly. And so for me to have a game that is about, no, you are worth it, you are good, you are just as you, even if you just even if you can't do the impossible every day, you're still worth the air you breathe, you're worth the space you take up. And so I guess working on something that puts that message out into the world, I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I think on like an overarching one, I think that's definitely a thing to be proud of, but also your personal one, it shows that, going back to the personal one, you put all the effort and the time to focus on making that, and like it is one of my favorite ones, I feel like, because one of the things I like the most is when you go into the power and you get to see the world from the eyes of whoever your motion you're in. And Eleanor's is just amazingly done. I mean, everything is broken and backwards, and I mean, the whole thing, it just connects everything so well. So yeah, wonderful things. I love that. Somebody in the chat, one of my mods goes, "Who's crying?" Not me. Everybody's crying from you talking about that. It's true though. It is true. It's a very important, I mean, heck, like, I was in the DLC, but I didn't really get to see the entire story until I played the game. And it like literally, like, it sounds cheesy, but like it changed my way of thinking about things. I was like, holy moly, like this, like, I know that's me, but like also this is me. Like, I relate to Steph as just a player, so it's really cool to see that.
Oh my gosh, the DLC is a whole, oh my gosh, the DLC is
yeah, it's crazy.
It was actually, I've been meaning to ask you about this because we were doing press for the DLC, and I was so curious about how much of the final, all cobbled together, what does it actually look like as a game you had seen?
Nothing.
Amazing.
Nothing. I had seen nothing, Mal. Nothing. Yeah, until
all
I
of that
played
dating app stuff was like, we were really catching your real reaction, like live on stream. That was such a blast watching you play the DLC.
I'm glad. I'm so happy. You guys were so awesome. I loved having you guys in my stream. I was just like, what other Deck 9 devs are lurking in the stream? Hello. Yeah.
We are in the chat.
You all have like a special command and stuff. We love it. But yeah, everything that I saw, that was the first time I've seen anything. I didn't see, because I mean, I was all over here, and when I was filming stuff in Colorado, they didn't have anything yet, I mean, they had the rough outline of where I was going to be in the studio and stuff, but nothing. I didn't see anything. So that was my real raw reaction. And I've only played the DLC once. I still need to play it a second time.
Hopefully it won't take you 8 hours again.
I know. I know. I see like regular folks who can actually play games in a decent time. You know, they play it for like 3.5 hours, and it took me like 8 hours. I couldn't believe that. Yeah, that was crazy.
I meant to figure out who wrote that horse feet line.
It was oh my gosh, it was Felice. Felice wrote
yeah?
it. Yeah, because when I was on I was doing press with Felice and ERIKA, and I brought that up. And Felice, she was like, I go, hey, I just want to know who wrote the horse feet line. She goes, oh, yeah, I don't know who, like, you know, because she thought I asked about who filmed it or something. And I go, no, who wrote it? She's like, oh, I wrote that. Like, just like had no idea the weight that this stinking line has, you know, put on the entire life. Some wrestler, some verified wrestler on Twitch, like, retweeted like a gif of the horse feet, and I was like, how did you get that? Why did some wrestler who's verified on Twitter tweet just the gif of the horse feet? I don't understand.
That's awesome. Rock on, wrestler from Twitch.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it was crazy. But
that was so funny watching you.
My entire chat right now is screaming horse feet. Yeah, they're just screaming horse feet. They do it from time to time. Yeah.
High five Felice for that one. Horse feet is such a hilarious way to put it.
And I didn't even like remember that line. I truly didn't. You know, I just like heard it and I was like, what is this line? When did I say this? What is this? It was great.
Oh, the little cinematic is so good.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful.
It's so good.
It's just like, hello, I'm a horse. And you're like, oh my God, we've replayed it so many times. It's like, it's one of those things.
I don't feel bad gushing about these moments because I didn't have anything to do with them. So I can just be like, wasn't that funny? And I'm not bragging. That was 100% other people.
Well, anything you've said, you don't sound like you're bragging. You're awesome. You're very humble about everything. I just want you to know that. But you should be incredibly proud of what you do and what you have done, because you have changed the lives of many, many, many people from around the heckin' world. And also, you know, the game was nominated for like a ton of awards. So I just want you to be proud.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you didn't know, I just want you to be proud, because yeah, it's hard though. It is hard because like, I can relate to you in the same thing. Like, you know, like I'm just always like that too. I always don't want to feel, like I'm coming on too much or whatever. You sit back, just be humble, and, you know, just carry on with your life. So I get that.
Well, I think you also have that sort of front row seat to how many people are involved in making it. Cause you know, even just mocap, there's a dozen people with very like
there's so many people.
So I want to re-shout out all of Deck 9 because it's making games is really a team sport.
It really
I guess unless you're that guy who made Stardew Valley, but I'm not the guy who made
or the crab game. Have you seen the crab game yet?
The crab game?
Yeah, it's like a mock-off of the Squid Game, except for like this guy from Sweden. I don't know if he's from Sweden. Like made it all by himself. It's not the level of Stardew, but it's another one of those games that somebody just made in their basement, and they've just it's going viral. It's crazy. But yeah,
really impressive.
A lot of people. That's another thing too. Is it's like, I always try to scream it off to the mountains that, like, Deck 9, Deck 9, Deck 9, the devs, because like, yes, like I performed and voiced this actor, but like I had such a small little part in this. Like, truthfully, like I had, I came in, performed, and then I left, and you guys have, you're there working, consistently on this game constantly. And so it's like, that's why I wanted you to come on here so you could talk about your experience, because it's so important, and I want you to be spotlighted along with, whoever else I can get on here from the team. So, yeah.
I love that. Also, though, don't sell yourself short. You and ERIKA always had such excellent mocap questions.
I feel like I just enjoy listening to ERIKA's mocap questions. I feel like there was a couple in there. I don't know. I'm just always like, I sit back and just kind of like go along with it, it's definitely, I miss it. I was telling Mal before we started how I miss working with them so much. I really do.
Have to find a way to bring you back somehow.
Yeah, you know me. I will be there in a heartbeat. Okay, so we have several more questions. I feel like we're moving along fairly decent. We'll try to get you out of here in the next half hour, so I don't take up too much of your precious time. Yeah, no, I mean, this is great though. So you were talking about how you kind of venture around the Reddits a little bit, you lurk around. Captain actually asked, have you read any of the Life is Strange fanfics?
Alas, no. I guess I'm not 100% sure, so nobody out there quote me on this. But I think, it's sort of a franchise, and there's if the opportunity to make another of these games or to revisit some of these characters is to emerge somewhere down the road, and whatever we make ends up hewing too closely to a fan fiction, for example, and any of us have seen that work, we can be looking at getting into legal trouble, I think. And so as a general rule, I try to avoid
Interesting.
I try to avoid any of those.
I mean, that's smart. Yeah, I never thought about that.
It's tricky. That's something that I learned from film school, and so please don't quote me. I don't know that that's correct, but I'm kind of a err on the safe side.
Yeah,
kind of
no, I mean, I
person.
do the same thing. I would do the same thing. I mean, now that you're saying that, yeah, that makes complete and utter sense. So there you guys go.
Maybe one day, though. I have read plenty of fan fiction in my day, just sadly not the Life is Strange ones.
Yeah, you gotta be safe. So jumping into just narrative design, so out of True Colors, going into narrative design, let's see if we have, so we talked a little bit about that. How about we go into, so James asks, do you have any tips for aspiring, and then in parentheses fanfic, writers that have helped to get you where you are now? So just any tips for writers, I guess, to get you where you are now.
Yeah, I think there are two that sort of immediately jump to mind. And the first one is just write all the time, write tons of things. And if they're bad, that's okay. I think, and they're going to kind of dovetail. So then the second thing is write things that you can finish. I think those are the two really big ones. And the second one was really big for me personally. I kind of wanted to be a writer my whole life. And when I was in, I think, high school, I had just a gajillion story ideas, and I would open up a Word doc and plug away at it for a couple of weeks. But I don't know, I was always trying to write novels or something, and I never finished any of them. And I don't know, I guess I got really good at beginning things, and I never got around to the ending things part, because I would the projects were just too big for me. I couldn't finish them with the time that I was dedicating to it at the time. And it really wasn't until college that I learned how difficult it really can be to tie all your threads up together and try to sort of land the plane. So I would say pick whatever project is going to be inspiring to you, but try to set up something that you can finish. If you're going to write your fanfic, and if it's going to be 26 chapters and 500,000 words, awesome, go for it. But try to make sure that you get through to that ending. I think that's one of the most difficult endings. They're so hard. And so get that practice, and write a gazillion terrible short stories, and over time they'll stop being terrible. And if we're doing that right, you should be learning the basics of structure and how to write an ending, and how to set up for the ending that you want, which is just all stuff that took me a really long time to actually get around to focusing on and really putting a lot of effort into. And so I think the sooner you can start ending your stories, the easier a time you'll have with that gauntlet. Yeah. And then just particularly in light of trying to finish stuff, let what you're writing be kind of bad. It's okay. Don't sit there and write chapter 1 7 times and then burn yourself out on writing because you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're not really getting anywhere, or it doesn't feel like what you're writing is as good as you want it to be. Just write chapter 1 and then write chapter 2, and try not to get too hung up on making it perfect as you go, because getting something finished, I think, is the most important piece. And that kind of polish thing, you can do that on a second pass, come back through and rewrite. You know, writing is rewriting. You're going to be editing your stuff to death. But editing a chapter 1 to a really, really high level of polish, in my opinion, is not going to be as useful for growth as writing something that's maybe kind of bad the whole way through. You can always come back and clean it up, but yeah, getting to the end, I think, is really.
There you go. That was awesome. That was great advice. Yeah. Somebody said, honestly, this is good advice for anything. Just finish your projects even if they're not perfect. I love that. Yeah, that really does. It speaks to a lot. That's awesome. So piggybacking off a little bit of that, so back for just writing, do you have any recommendations when it comes to building a writing portfolio? In your experience, what do you think game studios look for?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about some of the stuff that we look for. Sadly, I can't talk too broadly about the industry. I'm a one studio only so far dev, but we look for the ability to like highly characterize your lines. This is a big thing that you'll hear if you ever end up in a screenwriting program. That if someone went through and were to white out all of your character names before each line, you should still be able to tell who's speaking, because everyone is so themselves. You know, you want a Steph line to be so clearly Steph that it doesn't even need to say Steph before the line, that everyone can just read it and be like, yeah, that's something Steph would say. And that's really important, because something that's a big part of the sort of narrative design and video game writing thing. And that's where, I don't know, say for example, you're playing an RPG and there's a boss fight, and the boss has 7 or 8 lines that they sort of shout at you as you play this fight. And those lines need to be like, oh, this one is a taunt, or this one is where the player has gotten to below half health and so he's being really confident, or this is one where the boss has started to lose the fight and so there's this bark. And we want all of those to feel really in world and really in character, while at the same time performing fairly specific function. And so getting those barks to look good is a really big thing that we look for. And then another thing that we like to look for, at least, is if you are looking at specifically game writing, are there or for us, like choice-based narrative, choice-based game writing, little choose your own adventures are little emphasis. You know, little things that show that you kind of have that skill set, that sort of what is this about? How can I ask you a question in the game world that is also about what the game is about? And then when you choose something, what happens because of what you chose? And so seeing that, the ability to sort of think in several directions at once like that is really interesting. I highly recommend, really, if anyone is out there who's interested in this stuff, checking out like Twine is a really great free tool. It'll take you a little bit to learn it, but it's not terribly complicated. And you can start, as my dog, you can start making little text-based games right now. Like if you're in the stream and that interests you, open a new tab. Don't close this tab. Just open a new tab, and type that in and start doing it now. I think it's really fun, and you can sort of see some of the inner workings, the guts that make branching narrative work. And yeah, just get your feet wet with setting up something like that, where it asks the player to make a choice, and then they make it, and it goes somewhere, and you can do that in 20 minutes right now if that interests you. I highly recommend checking
I love it.
out.
I think a lot of people are. Somebody said it's free. It's free, I think.
It's free.
Yeah, I'm literally doing that right now. A lot of people are looking into it. That's awesome. Yay, I'm so glad they're learning things that they didn't know before. This makes me so happy. I love this.
Make so many terrible Twine games, guys. I've made so many terrible Twine games in my day.
Yes. Make them and then share them, guys, in the Discord so everybody else can see them too, okay? You know, only if you feel comfortable, but do them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Okay, cool. So we've got a couple of personal questions for you. So Gabe sort of collects records in the game. I like to think that what people collect says a lot about them. Do you have anything that you collect?
Oh boy. Well, I do have my own pretty decent record collection
You
going.
do?
Yeah, I've got the most eclectic record collection you've ever seen.
Where do you keep them? Like, do you keep them in crates, or do you have like a beautiful like? Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, well, it's they're still in the box that I moved them in right now,
Yeah.
sadly. We'll get there one day. Yeah, I've got a lot of my mom's records that
Oh, I
she
love that.
that she got in college. So I have a Toto's Africa on vinyl, and then I also
Yes.
have like the Congos and just the weirdest smattering of music.
I love it.
I think that's the only thing I really sort of actively collect.
Uh-huh.
But there are things that I buy that build up that we can talk about.
Yeah.
I have a lot of old film cameras for some
What?
reason.
Cool.
I have a lot, yeah, like these sort of analog cameras that were
Yeah.
made in like the 50s ish.
Yeah.
And they're all analog, right? Everything is mechanical. There's no computer inside of it. And just seeing how people built stuff and got it to work. I have one of them that has a little thing on the front that can tell you, you have to know how to set it up, but
Uh-huh.
it uses like selenium, which I think is some kind of metal, to tell you how fast your film needs to be, or
Huh.
what your how quick the exposure is.
Yeah.
And I just think that's brilliant that people are figuring out how you can set your camera with no computer in it, and it'll tell you if it's bright enough for the picture you want to take. I love clever stuff like that, and so I've sort of ended up
That's so cool.
with a bunch of old cameras.
Do you do photography at all, or like you do?
Yeah, yeah, I've shot on them.
That's so
I have
wait,
an
what?
Exacta and a Folktlander.
I want to see your photography now. Do you have anything public?
Gosh, it's been a while. That was
Long time. Well, yeah, now
yeah,
you're, in the cave constantly
yeah. It
writing.
was it was something I did a lot in back in film school.
Yeah.
Work on framing shots and
That's so cool.
how can you tell a whole story with one static image? I think all of that
Yeah.
stuff is really
Oh, you're
fascinating.
making me miss photography now. I
I'll send
love
you an old
that.
camera and
Ah, let's do it. Let's do it. I love that. That's so cool.
teach you how to use the selenium light meter.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love this. What great questions, guys. I love the personal
Yeah, these are
questions
great.
because we get to learn a little bit more about you outside of the workplace. So this question, next one comes from Max, who is known for asking these really weird, outrageous questions. So here we go. You find yourself in a large, empty, windowless room standing on a stack of milk crates. On the other side of the room is the door to leave. Scattered across the room is exactly 357 Canadian geese.
So this is
Armed,
a big room.
yeah, sounds like it. Armed with an inflatable sword, a kitten, and a sudden intense feeling of courage and bravery, how do you make it to the door?
Hmm. So I think there are two possible answers here. And the first is based on an experience that I had at film school, where I was walking from the overflow parking lot to the building through this field. And I could see with my eyeballs that there were two clusters of Canadian geese in this field. And I was like, it's going to be fine. I'm just going to walk between them
This is real?
to yes.
Okay.
And somewhere in between my car and the middle of this field, one of these Canadian geese from one group of geese mortally offended another goose from the other set of geese. And they went to war with each other as I was walking through this field. So,
Oh my god.
so I think the first answer is to try to find some way to pit the geese against each other.
Nice.
And then sneak out while they are squabbling. I'm not sure how the kitten or the sword factor in. Now, the other possible answer is to just never leave, become queen of the geese. You rule with an iron fist and an inflatable sword. And then once you have the loyalty of your kingdom, you conquer the world. Those are my answers.
I love those, and I think Max is gonna love those answers too. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
don't get between two squabbling Canadian geese,
Oh
though.
my
I was there by
goodness.
accident. 0 of 10, would not recommend.
I was like, no way you've had this kind of experience. I love that.
I feel like, oh, it's too bad Corwin's not here because I feel like he could vouch for the number of geese that
Oh
hung out
really?
near the film school.
Dang. I
Yeah,
still
well, it was just kind of like this building, and
yeah.
then just like we had the community college campus was really close by,
Yeah.
and so there was some of their like old track and field stuff, but there was just a ton of empty space,
The
and geese
geese.
were like, I know a spot.
Yeah. The college. It's just so
Yeah.
crazy that you and Corwin went to the same school. We're in some of the same classes. Were there anybody else at Deck 9 who also went to the same school?
Yeah, some of the cam techs that helped in mocap were
Really?
former CFS folks.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. I mean, it makes sense because yeah, you had talked about it, and Corin talked a little bit more about how the film classes were involved, and Deck 9 had a part in it, and they just kind of like helped, which is that's just so cool.
Yeah, it's a really coul program. I think they're still doing it even, and folks are still getting to play around with the tool. So
I love that.
yeah, that was super cool. Yeah, Billy, the famous bald, the voice of the famous bald man,
The bald guy, yes.
went to school
Billy.
with us. Yeah,
That's Billy was awesome. I love that.
he did the scream so well.
Oh, he is just notorious now. He's notorious.
It came out so funny.
It was perfect. It was perfect. So Dakota has one last question for you. If you had to live by one quote, what would it be?
I should have like prepared. I feel like I could sit here and like really think and like come up with a really good answer to this question. But instead of doing that, I'm just going to tell you what my senior quote was in the yearbook in high school. In the end, my senior quote was, "Life is short, so tell the people you love that you love them. But life is also terrifying and confusing, so shout it at them in German."
Yes, I love that one. I love that. That's awesome. That's a great. Oh, the senior quotes. The senior quotes. I love
a weird
that.
senior quote for me to choose, but I stand by it.
Yeah,
apparently.
no, it's good. It's good. We all had some interesting ones, I'm sure. Wow, awesome. Well, this was so fun, Mal. Like, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting. I know nothing about the writer world, especially within the video game industry, so I learned a lot personally. Chat, I hope you guys learned a lot. Thank you guys again so much for your questions.
Oh, they were great. These were really good questions.
Yeah, they were, right? Do you have any last words you want to say? Anything you'd like to promote? And I have your Twitter going off in the chat. So, but if there's anything else that, anywhere else you want them to follow you, please let us know. But yeah, any last words?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of personal stuff happening right now. So I think, I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to like turn this into like a gross cheese fest or something, but it really is a privilege to be able to work in a franchise like Life is Strange, because, you know, we saw it with the first game, and then we saw it again, like personally ourselves at Deck 9 with Before the Storm, that this is just such a dedicated and supportive and positive fan community, and it really is a privilege to get to make content for you all and see you all making meaning out of it and making meaning for each other out of it and coming together over that. I think that's really unique and really, really special. And without that, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And so I just, thanks for playing. Thanks for tuning in. All that stuff. Thanks for the community that you guys have made, that we've been able to sort of step into. It's been really fun.
Yay! I love that. There's so many hearts in the chat right now. So many hearts in the chat. I love that. Well, chat, I'm going to see Mal off, so I will be right back. Thank you so much again, Mallory, for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully at some point, either you will come to LA or I'll come to Colorado, and we can, officially, you know, hang out and out of the workplace and all that stuff. Also, I saw
when you're not in a mocap suit that's made of Velcro.
Yeah, exactly. When I don't have this huge helmet that can like smack people. Also, I saw your dog walk in too. He like walked in and like sniffed and was like hello and then left. I don't know, but so
she's
cute.
The love of my life.
She's so cute. She was so cute. But again, thank you so much for coming in and being a part of this. I really appreciate it. And yeah, again, congratulations on
oh my gosh.
Congratulations on the Game Awards. And again, if you guys have not voted, please, if you do exclamation Game Awards in the chat, you can get that link to take you to the nominations page. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will put that link in the description. So vote. Life is Strange for Games for Impact, Best Narrative, and ERIKA Mori for Best Performance as Alex Chen. Okay, I will see you guys very soon. Alrighty, bye guys.